Hey there, Will here. And you seemed to like the discussion of the Samsung Galaxy 3 Buds Pro that I did, in which I mentioned the Sennheiser Momentum True Wireless 4s. I thought it would be good to just concentrate on these because these are the best sounding true wireless earphones I've heard. And I have a lot of experience with earphones. So I used to listen to a pair of Master and Dynamic MW, no, it was M50s. They were over ear cans, and I used a Chord Mojo um, DAC amp setup. I love the true wireless setup. It's so much better. It's so much more convenient, so much more portable, obviously. But I love the momentums. And say that from a perspective having tried pretty much all of the Sony offerings, um, the several Master and Dynamic offerings, the Bowers and Wilkins, the Bang& Olufsen. So I've listened to a lot of different earphones and to a lot of different genres of music. I like primarily rock, but I listen to a lot of trip hop, a lot of classical, a lot of non-vocal stuff because I write a lot, and I find that when I'm listening to vocalists, I tend to trip up, honestly, with some words while I'm writing. So it's better for me to hear non-vocal recordings. So a lot of instrumental stuff, a lot of classical stuff. And these sound fantastic. These are obviously can't compare them to the over-ear Master and Dynamic cans I had. And usually in-ear versus over-ear headphones have a very different sound to them. And it used to be that there was no way that something like these could compare to over-ear headphones. I don't know that that's the case anymore for a lot of reasons. It's been 3 years, 4 years probably, since I had the Master Dynamics. I got these almost as soon as they came out, as soon as they were released. And I had been using the Bang& Olufsen Beoplay EX/E10s um, until then. I had tried a lot and continued to go back to the Bang& Olufsen's. I liked how they sounded. There was a very distinct and wide soundstage. Like it had a lot of depth to it. It had a lot of space, essentially, and a lot of clarity in that space. So there was a lot of instrument separation. There was a lot of just music sounded great, but also very spacious. And I say that differently from spatial audio because for spatial audio, I found that it seems like externally 3D, whereas when I say stuff like soundstage or instrument separation or clarity, those are more like in ear kinds of. Those are it's audio imaging. I feel like you make in your own head. Essentially, is the best way I can describe it. These have the best. Bang& Olufsen might be a little more clear, a little wider, but these have more punch to them. There's a harder impact with bass, percussion. Um, there's a crunchiness with guitars, is the best way I can describe it, which probably sounds weird, but it's almost more like there's a texture. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about here because when you break things down in terms of specs, in terms of like the driver size, in terms of whether it has how many tweeters and like the transducers and whether it's a dynamic driver, all these different things, they have an impact on sound quality, but they don't make the quality of the sound, if that makes sense. Um, these just sound fantastic. I think they have 7, maybe 8 millimeter drivers, and you find bigger drivers. You found like 13-inch or 13. Those would be giant, can you find 13 millimeter drivers in a lot of earphones nowadays? I think the Sonys maybe have 11, or they're bigger than this. Um, it doesn't matter to me, and I don't think it should matter to you. Like it's not about the size; it's about how it moves the air around and how it sounds in your head. And one of the reasons that this beats it, one of the ways this these particular phones really exceed others is in their sound personalization. And they are the best sounding earphones for me. But I'd also argue they're probably the best sounding earphones for you, like whoever you are, because Sennheiser has a great sound personalization app, and that's not uncommon now. That's almost table stakes now. Like so many earphone manufacturers are building these kinds of things into their app. Like there's a fit test, so you can be sure which size ear tips are the best, um, and then sound tests. And some of that can be hearing based, sure, but a lot of it's preference based too. And Sennheiser has the best preference based sound test I've found and I've experienced because it doesn't use my own music. And that sounds counterintuitive, but I know the music I listen to. I know what tracks I'll run through as I listen to these. I know those tracks really well. I've listened to they're tracks that continually end up on my Spotify most listened to over a year because that's how I listen to music, and I continue to go back to the same ones. I like the same similar songs. Um, I love Spotify's algorithm. That's like if you like this, you might like that. That's how I discover a lot of music, and I still like to discover music. I still like to find new artists and listen to them. Sennheiser's preference app though doesn't use my own music. Sony's does, and with Sony's, like I would take a one song. I think I took "Holy Roller" by Emily Wolf, in fact, and would listen to that, and it gives you five options, and you choose which one sounds best to you. And then it gives you, I think, three more, and it basically winnows down, so you're at the best sounding of the five to eight. Um, and Sennheiser's in the app is it has instrument separation. So I think first you listen to some strings and then some percussion, and then it combines the two, and then it adds another layer, and it basically asks you to um, choose between those things, but from a sound that is proprietary, I guess, to Sennheiser, but also surprising to you. And it was surprising to me. Like I'd never heard these sounds before, and it really made me listen to the mix. It made me listen to the instruments themselves, the sound, uh, in clean ways that I'd never heard any of those things before. So it was really a distinction from familiar music that I might be used to. And I think that was a really, really solid choice from Sennheiser. And I think that's why you're going to get the best sound out of these. And I'll be honest, these out of the box, they sound good. They don't sound as spectacular as they now sound for me. I would say out of the box, these are going to sound fine for you, but like when you personalize them, that's when they're going to sound spectacular for you. So I don't really bother too much with the A/B testing. I don't bother too much with like all the curves and graphs and all those kinds of things. I care about what sounds really good. And I think Sennheiser does a bang up job of making sure that these sound really good for me and for you and for everyone, especially based on the personalization that you can do through the app. It's phenomenal, and I haven't heard earphones that sound better. I've heard earphones that sound different. I will say that the Bang& Olufsen might sound slightly more clear. I think there's a little more separation, but to me, they also sound more clinical. Like if I were trying to mix a track, not that I've ever done so, mind you, I'm not a professional musician. But if I were in a studio, I think that's probably a pair I might look for, but it's a very clinical sound. And I'll be honest, I don't like clinical sounds. I'm not a clinical listener. I like to listen to music that I love, and I like to be moved by it. I like the punch of it. I like how dynamic it sounds. I like how engaging it is. Um, and that's also something I wanted to point out with the personalization versus the equalizer. A lot of people talk about how great the apps have, like, it's a multi-track equalization, and some of them have five-track what do you call it, equalizers, and some of them have like 12 and whatever. Like I'm not an audiophile. I don't know what the difference is there. Like I've heard V-shaped. I think I like a V-shaped curve because I like a lot of rock music, and that favors kind of like a higher bass. I guess, slight dip in vocals and then a higher treble, so like hi hats and cymbals and stuff like that. But to be honest, I don't care about those things. And I can't remember any time when I've gone into an equalizer and been like, I'm going to mess with each of these tracks. Like um, set them differently. Like I'll use the rock preset, or I've used the jazz preset a couple times because I find that it's a less emphasis on bass. I do like a good amount of bass, but I like punchy bass that is really clean and clear and has a good emphasis, but isn't overpowering, obviously. But like I've never really touched an equalizer. You may have, and you may want that granular control. This does have that. This has really good granular control over the equalizers. It's just not something I've ever used. These are fun. These are really, really good, and they're more fun to me than like the Sony's. Like I said, the ANC might not be as great as some other ones. I don't mind that. I'm listening at my desktop. Like when I commute, the noise canceling is fine. It's not spectacular. It's not Bose level where like you're suddenly in a black hole of sound on the middle of the subway. Like that's not what these are for. But they're really good for what they are for. The Like I said, the Sony's do have somewhat better noise canceling. They also sound closer. Basically, it sounds like there isn't as much room for the like breadth of instruments in the Sony's. Like they sound higher up too, and it's not a spatial audio thing. It's not like they sound like they're coming from above me. They just sound higher up in my head than these do. These sound like basically at a good height, but also there's like a almost 3D soundstage to them that is not spatial audio, but like it's really good separation. So yeah, I think these are still the best sounding earphones you can get right now. They're the best for me, and I would wager you can make them the best for you and you and you, like as the video title notes.